We kick things off with a man who is no stranger to the Observer. I say a special good night to the former top cop and political leader of the National Transformation Alliance, the NTA, Gary Griffith. Pleasant good evening, sir.
Hi, good evening.
Yes, indeed. Oh, you sound a bit low there. I don't know if I...
Yeah, okay, hold on a minute. Hear me better now?
All right, wonderful. Yes,
Okay,
indeed.
good.
It's been a while. I know you've been quite busy. So much is taking place. We have the National Security Minister, Fitzgerald Hines, apologizing to the citizens of this Twin Island Republic, saying that, of course, to deal with the crime situation that has resulted so far 459 murders for the year. He said, on behalf of those of us who behave in those ways, who choose crime in some cases as a business model, he apologizes to the rest of us, and he gives us the assurance that as Minister of National Security, we will continue to put the walls, put up the fences, and fight like hell to protect you from that. I don't know how basically to take this. I mean, after 8 years, after so many murders, so many mishaps, so many promises, and the fact that many of our citizens seem to feel as though they're under siege and are criminals in their own home, what say you about this comment?
I think it is only because it is not a matter of so much grave concern. It is virtually comical that Fitzgerald Hines will be saying this. So you're apologizing for your incompetence, for your failure. As soon as you make that apology, you have now basically thrown in the towel and stated that I have failed. Your apology is significant in the fact that you have now finally admitted that you are not doing what is required. There's absolutely not a snowball chance in hell that there is something that he will be able to say or do that can make him think out of the box. The PNM has absolutely no one in the PNM in the hierarchy now that has the capability based on experience, qualification, training, or track record to deal with protecting citizens in this country. They don't know what to do. So what we have seen even in the budget presentation, the Minister of Finance decided to regurgitate 8 of the 117 things that would have been dismantled, shut down from either the People's Partnership Administration that was successful and not used, or even myself as the Commissioner of Police. And that is where they have reached to, because they do not look at that budget presentation, not one thing that is new, dynamic, innovative. Every one of the 8 policies they use, they spoke about increasing the recruiting intake. That is what we did in the People's Partnership in 2014 when I realized there were 100 persons being recruited in a batch, and you have 2 batches a year, so that's 200. But guess what? We were losing 200 police officers annually from retirement, death, or whatever. And because of that, we could never get the established strength. Thankfully, when I after speaking to the chair of the National Security Council, Kamala Prasad Visesa, I explained to her what is required. I moved the training to Shagrama's Convention Center. We started doing batches of 300 to 350, and we got the closest to the establishment. For 8 years, the PNM out of bad mind refused to continue what we did. And now, 8 years later, you're realizing that the only way to do it is to go back to do exactly what you shut down and dismantled in the hope you could bring the established strength. The problem is, by you failing to keep the Shagrama's Convention Center properly up to the standard, the taxpayers will now have to pay $30 million to refurbish it. And that again is the incompetence. They then went and spoke about vehicles, putting $80 million in vehicles. It was their Prime Minister, Keith Rowley, based on his incompetence, who said, why is Gary Griffith asking for us to get SUVs? But you're getting sedans, you're getting vehicles, again in the police service, for the average citizen. If you use your vehicle, say 3-4 hours a day, a police vehicle will be used 20 hours a day. So if you use your vehicle's lifespan could be 10 years, or say 15 years, you have to divide that by 5 to get the equal lifespan for a police vehicle. So after 4 years, the vehicles are going to break down. We started doing proper preventative maintenance. That is why under the People's Partnership and me as Commissioner, you would have been seeing everywhere you turn high visibility or rapid response. People complain about too many blue lights. You're now coming back to do exactly what we did.
Well,
you spoke about
and that's the thing about it, Mr. Griffith. I mean, basically thinking that here it is that we expect in the budget a layout of plans that would show that from many of the things that you may have presented and maybe have even made it better. But here it is, you have Mr. Hines telling us that there are 7 enduring threats against national security. They manifest a certain characteristic, including coming predominantly from outside the borders of Trinidad and Tobago. This is no news to us. I mean, and he goes on to talk about the small and light arms problem manufactured in the United States and human trafficking, and then saying that Trinidad and Tobago, he has noticed that the same transnational networks that do guns also do human trafficking and drugs. I mean, this is not news to us. We as citizens, we are quite aware of that. The average citizen doesn't want to get boggled down into all of this logistics. We want to know that we can go to the bank, make our transactions, not have to worry about perhaps some teller or someone tipping off the robbers, having senior citizens beaten in the streets, people jumping our walls, violating our families. We want to make sure at the end of the day that we can have a safe environment, that we could go about doing our business. All of this stuff about transnational and the borders and so forth is totally above our pay grade. So what are we looking at?
And you're correct, and that is that it was just a lot of old talk, rubbish of talk, stating what we already knew. We could actually go on CNN. We can turn on a newspaper, open a newspaper or watch the news to know the problems that exist in the country. All that Imber did was to give the problems, state what exists, and never came up with any solution. So that's why I spoke about the recruit intake. She spoke about social media monitoring. We had the app reported, the online reported. It was the biggest app in Trinidad and Tobago, 400,000 hits. People were pumping information. You shut down the police app. You shut down the online reporting. You water down the gender-based violence unit to the point that a 13-year-old girl who can be raped, instead of her going online and having the gender-based violence unit come to her home, you water down the gender-based violence unit, you shut down the app reporting and the online reporting, forcing us all to go back to a police station, which is banana republic policing. You are raped, you are beaten, you are molested, your husband has beaten you. You don't have to go to a station to report it. Very good chance the officer is close friends or knows the suspect. By the time you leave the station, you can very well now become targeted again. The PNM is responsible for the bloodshed. You shut down, as I said, the app reporting, the online reporting, the SOS on the phone, the gender-based violence unit. That 13-year-old girl who was molested and then killed. The PNM is at fault. They are responsible. We had opportunities to have, for instance, if you are raped, if your husband is beating you, we do it online. There's a degree of confidentiality. We understand the sensitivity. We will come to your home. We'll deal with the perpetrators. You remove all that. You then spoke about garment vessels. Okay, listen to what I just said. We put that garment vessel. We paid 1.2 billion under the People's Partnership. 1.2 billion less than 3 OPPs. You know, PNM love to talk about, they shut down the OPP. Well, listen, PNM fanatics. I want you to type after the show, BAE/corruption. You will find 17 countries sued BAE for paying kickback to government officials. So those OPPs they wanted, we were going to pay 2.4 billion. When as a security advisor, I did research, went to Colombia, Israel, and Korea, and they were giving us the same OPPs for 400 million. Instead, what I was able to acquire was the garment vessels, 6 vessels with 2 utility vessels, to the same as the OPPs for 1.2 billion. Out of bad mind, the PNM refused to use these vessels for 8 years. And now Inbert is speaking about refurbishing these vessels after 8 years they didn't use it. This is the incompetence we had to endure. They spoke about the problem about borders, this with the scanners. I acquired 2 mobile scanners, and for 2 years since I left, they've pulled the plug. This Trinidad and Tobago cannot be incompetent. There needs to be a deliberate link between the criminal underworld to those who make decisions.
And you're right. And compounded with the fact that, all right, so there's a plan to triple the intake of police recruits in 2024, utilizing facilities outside of the police academy for recruit training, including the same Chaguaramas Convention Center and schools that you spoke about. My issue here, and many of us looking on, again, and I have to raise the issue of Fairfax County. We were told, and I understand something was sold to us as crime being a priority for a government that was in waiting. Coming into office, we've heard nothing more about the fact of this Fairfax County visit that the current Minister of National Security visited. And one of the things that was highlighted by Dr. Rowley is that they have less manpower, less officers. Now, in this guava season, people are lining up to get a job. Hey, if I'm going to get a monthly check, fine. but do the individuals understand the responsibility that comes with the job besides the paycheck in a golfer season?
Yeah, and you're correct, because bringing in 1,400 extra police officers, as nice as it would be, this is going to cost us hundreds of millions of dollars more annually in salaries and so forth. And is it going to be helpful? Possibly. But the point being, remember Trinidad and Tobago, 2 years ago, everywhere you turn, you were seeing a police officer. For the last 6 months, I don't think one citizen could say they have seen a police officer assisting in directing traffic to try to minimize the traffic congestion. We had a national operations center, an operational command center, a commissioner's command center, monitoring all of the traffic. If there's anytime there's traffic, we send police officers. We had police vehicles everywhere you turned. So it was the same number of police officers 2 years ago that we have now. So the important thing is not to increase quality, but to enhance quantity, but to enhance quality. And that is what is required. We needed to, 2 years ago, we made sure officers were accountable. We measured their performance. We made sure they came to work. We were able to monitor to see if the vehicles were actually patrolling in the right place, if they stayed in an area of responsibility. We had GPS tracking on the vehicles to make sure we monitor if they're going over the speed limit without a reason, how fast they got to a response. And it was less than 5 minutes, which is why, remember, Trinidad and Tobago, a few moments later wasn't a joke. It was my accident. You jump a wall, you raise someone's home. As soon as you jump back over the wall, we got your wicket. We put an end to kidnapping using the technology that was required. You shut down and dismantle every single thing. So for the 130,000 PNM people who voted for the PNM in local government election, thankfully 190,000 understood the bigger picture. But to the 130,000, you really wanted to blindly vote for a party that has deliberately failed, pull back, dismantle, shut down all the systems that made you feel safer 2 years ago, and you still want to blindly support the political party like this? You need to check yourself.
Yeah, and we've been told time and time again that we are working and partnering with different, anti-crime units in North America and across the region. But again, when you talk about technology, and you've mentioned so many things, the most we've seen is someone's phone being retrieved that was a relative of a minister. Many of the technology and things that are laid out apparently are not working, or simply these units, as you said, have been dismantled.
Yeah, because we were looking into the dark web. We were doing something known as predictive policing. When the audacity of this man, this Minister of Finance, speaking about working with our allies, it was the first time Trinidad and Tobago we were able to sign a bilateral agreement between Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and the NYPD. By us doing that, we were able to bring in persons to train us to have a gender-based violence unit, to have what is known as a social media monitoring unit, because you have criminals and gangs and so forth that will boast about crimes committed, that will boast about crimes that will take place. And those things help us, known as predictive policing, stopping the crime. We were able to stop about 50 odd murders before it took place. So that's why in my last year, when it was 342 murders for a year, it was the lowest number of murders in Trinidad and Tobago's history in any given year for 17 years, because we put systems in place. You shut down all of that. You have not used the NYPD since. They were instrumental to help us, as I said, to form the gender-based violence unit that has now been virtually non-existent. The social media monitoring unit, training our police officers in customer service training, public relations, getting the public trust and confidence to increase to 55%. You remove all of that, yet have the audacity to speak about working with your international allies. Let me not even mention the technology that we use that put an end to kidnapping. It was the first time we were able to start pinpointing perpetrators who had victims, kick down the door, intercept the vehicles, and the kidnappers like, what the hell is going on here? How did they know that? We put an end to kidnapping because of that. You have shut down and dismantled the technology, the tools, the units, the systems, the policies, and now the country is drowning in blood. And I challenge any PNM supporter who voted for PNM or still thinking about voting PNM, please understand what I'm saying. Nothing is more important than your life. You can't be blindly voting for a political party when it is going to increase the chance of your wife being raped, your daughter being kidnapped, or your son being killed.
And let me ask you this, Mr. Griffith. The Prime Minister made it quite clear after the budget there will be expected talks between the opposition, you yourself being part of the group. Is that still on, or basically what's happening?
Well, the jury is still out. We will see whether it all comes to two. It's political maturity. Kamala President has shown that political maturity by looking at the bigger picture, just like myself, that the country cannot wait 15 months until the government changes, 15 or 16 odd months. We can't wait, because what is going to happen is that the country is going to continue to drown in blood. It is a fact. Again, I don't want to be political, but since 1991, every year that the PNM is in government, crime goes up, other than when I was commissioner. Every year that PNM is not in government, crime goes down. And so it has a lot to show that the catalyst for crime reduction has to do with the implementation of government policies.
Yeah.
Under the People's Partnership, crime went down every single year. As soon as the government changed, it has gone up every single year for 8 years, other than my period as Commissioner of Police in the last 18 months.
Yeah.
So if it is that we are willing to be mature because we are putting country first, we are being patriots before politicians, it remains to be seen whether Keith Rowley has the political maturity to do likewise.
And finally, I guess you can finally put to rest this talk about those who say COVID played a part in the reduction of crime and not any of the things that you laid out to deal with it.
Well, again, Karen Newell-Shell has proven to be probably the most incompetent, weirdest politician God has ever created. She has now joined Hope, and now she's going to Hope into Loop, because that is all she speaks about. I don't know if she has a top banker with Gary Griffith, but her ignorance in law enforcement is unbelievable. What we have seen recently in Jamaica, after COVID, crime has gone down dramatically. Guyana, after COVID, crime has gone down dramatically. And almost every city in North America, during COVID, crime went up, because if people do the research, there's a great chance that when you have a national pandemic or something along that line, businesses are going to close. When businesses close, what happens? People will lose their job. What happens? That means unemployment. You need money. Then that will turn to robbery and inflation and a byproduct, which is why in Guyana and Jamaica, crime actually went up, and after COVID, crime went down. So, but we did the opposite because of good policing, tactics, strategy, and by the way, the crime started going down even before COVID started in Trinidad and Tobago, because under Carnival 2020, it was the safest carnival ever. And then after, when I left in August 2021, in October and November, during COVID, during the pandemic, during the public health regulations, during the state of emergency, October and November had the second and third highest number of murders in Trinidad and Tobago's history. So that would rubbish the desperation by the PNM fanatics and Karen Newell-Shell and her party Hopeless that will try their best. But again, that is why 76% of the population wanted me to remain as commissioner. So that 76 understand that I'll be put in another position to do much more, not just to transform the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, but to transform every arm in the public sector in Trinidad and Tobago.
And you expect moving forward that every day it's not going to get better, it's simply going to get worse, where crime is.
Yeah, but because you have seen from this budget presentation, you did 8 policies, from the referring unit, social media monitoring, vehicles, dealing with vetted units that we had before in SWOT and covert operations, you working with the U.S. allies, scanners, the diamond vessels. You took 8 of the 117 policies that you shut down under the People's Partnership and me as the commissioner, because you have no ideas. They are totally lost. And the bad thing is, even if we give them the 117 policies and they reignite it, there's a difference in doing it and knowing how to implement it. So it is unfortunate, but it is not going to get better. But hopefully that those 16 months will disappear quickly, or hopefully they can be an earlier election to give this country some degree of hope.
Thank you so much, Mr. Griffith. It's always a pleasure to have you on. Best of luck to you and your entire team, and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.